Okay guys, so for our last kind of 20 minutes what we're going to be having a look at is the diary entry, okay? And like I said earlier, I'm aware that the kind of two first sections of what we've been looking at has been a little bit more intense, might be a little bit more difficult for some of you. So hopefully what we're ending with is going to be a little bit less scary and hopefully a bit more approachable, a bit more accessible for everyone no matter what level you're at, okay? So what we're going to be having a look at is the diary entry, and I'm going to be having a chat about these two sections in the exam as we go through these notes, just because it is a choice question, and I don't want everyone to just think that you have to do the diary entry, because these notes are kind of a little bit more persuasive towards the diary entry. I'll explain kind of what I mean as we go through them. But just on the inside, right, just on the first page of those notes in the diary entry, we've got at the top of the page, it says, should I choose the diary entry? And then obviously, me being as dramatic as possible, I happen to do that, yes, in capital letters. Now, the reason I encourage students to do the diary entry is for a few different reasons, okay? I don't want this to sound so stereotypical, but usually there is a higher percentage of women doing Spanish than there are men, okay, like at a national level. I have also been in situations where I have happened to teach more girls than I have boys. I've taught in more all-girls schools, or in my classes seem to be fairly female dominant, okay, whether that's in grinds or in my day school. Girls tend to be a little bit more nervous in exam situations about not writing enough to get full marks. Boys want to write as little as possible, or from my own experience, they want to write as little as possible to get the same amount of marks, but girls do not trust themselves enough or the examiner enough to be in that situation. So if you are someone, whether that is a boy or a girl, that is that kind of person that is like, I don't think I'm going to write enough to get good marks, you're the person that's going to do the diary entry. If you're someone who wants to write 4 sentences and get the same amount of marks, you're going to do the note, okay? But just hear me out as we're going through these notes all together. So I've said underneath this, right? So in your Leaving Certificate Spanish exams, this is going to be the last section in your exam. So you're going to have section C, which is kind of very much just showing the examiner what your level of Spanish is, okay? It's not necessarily as much kind of very topical, it's just more so based on your language skills. So your section C is going to be what we call the dialogue instruction, which is a 5-part translation piece, where it's like a conversation and you are given 5 things in the conversation in English that you have to translate into Spanish, and then you'll have a diary entry or a note. Okay, so this is going to be the last question on the written paper. So I've said here, so you'll have a choice between 2 20-mark questions, the diary entry and the note. In the diary entry, so basically what's going to happen in both of these questions, you're going to be given 4 things in English that you have to write about. So kind of like what you did for your junior cert letter or something, it'll be like, write a diary or write a note mentioning the following points. And you have to include all 4 of the points, but there's a little bit more leeway with the diary entry, in my opinion, okay? But the 20 marks are going to be divided up equally between all 4 of these points, so each point is going to be worth 5 marks. So you can't like just be like, I'm going to write an extra bit for this 3rd point and I'm still going to get the same amount of marks. Each point is worth 5 marks. Okay, what I've said here, so in the diary entry candidates, so you guys are asked to write a piece of more personal Spanish following 4 guidelines that are given in English. You should try to be a bit creative when writing your entry and use simple Spanish. Now, why do I think that you should be doing the diary entry instead of the note? Regardless of what I just said, so if you have a look in the middle of that page there, so judging by past papers and marks received by candidates for these questions, the diary entry tends to be easier. So if you think about it, when you were in 2nd and 3rd year and you were learning all about like the usted version of a verb, so like something being plural, so you would have written like usted and ustedes. If you are writing a note to someone that you might not necessarily know, technically speaking, you should be being formal. If you're writing to a group of people, you're going to have to be formal and plural. So in a diary entry, you never have that point because you're just writing to yourself, so you're never going to be in a position where you have to write formally. So you're not going to lose marks for using the incorrect, what we call register. So you're not going to lose marks for writing informally when it should have been formal, or vice versa, okay? So that's what I've written there. So the note needs to be written to someone, so you'll get marks for your register and for your pronouns. The note will often require more precise grammar or specific tenses. In a diary, if you think about it, if you're getting marks for like writing personal Spanish, sounding like a teenager, there's a little bit more leeway for maybe like what past tense you use, or for only using one future tense, or that kind of thing, that it's a little bit more like, okay, well that just sounds more like what a teenager would say, whereas in the note it'll be a little bit more specific. So that's my own opinion. I think the diary kind of, there's a little bit more of a margin for error. Okay, because the note is very short to the point, syntax, so again your sentence structure is very much taken into account. Longer sentences can often cost you marks. Diary entry, again, not as strict. And then candidates can use more of their personality in the diary, and some mistakes can be overlooked because of this, okay? So basically what we have for the marking scheme is at the bottom of the page. Okay, how many times am I going to drop my marker in this course? Right, apologies. I really wish I was like just more smooth, but I'm just not. Okay, so again it's 20 marks. Okay, and what the examiner will be told is look for valid well-made points. And this is the bit that we're looking at. This idea of something being well-made. In a diary entry, if I'm looking for your point to be well-made, what I would expect is kind of looking at like 2 to 3 sentences per point. Or say like 2 sentences per point and an opening phrase and a closing phrase or something. Like I want to see a little bit more personality. And often, to get that kind of idea across a personality, you're going to have to use phrases that might be a little bit more dramatic or a little bit more expressive. So like, say for argument's sake, if you're doing 2 sentences per point, you might have one sentence that directly translates the point that you've been asked to say. So like, say like, I have been invited to a party. And then your second point, or your second sentence for that point might be, and I can't wait, or I'm so excited, or like I'm really stressed because I don't have something to wear. Whereas in the note you wouldn't get the opportunity to do that, whereas in the diary entry you're trying to make it sound like a diary, so you're going to be a little bit more expressive, you're going to share a little bit more information than you would otherwise, okay? So personality, it's a very personal piece of writing because it's written to yourself. So because it's personal style, you've got a bigger margin for error. So you can kind of get away with it a little bit more because, technically speaking, you're never writing a diary entry for it to be corrected. Do you know what I mean? That obviously there's going to be things that are incorrect, but there's a little bit more leeway. If we're talking about the note, right? I want one absolute max 2 sentences per point. I would actually just rather 1 sentence per point. I don't need any extra information. I would like an opening and closing phrase, and when I say that, I mean something like saying like, hey, just a little note to tell you that, boom, 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 that's all, chat to you later, or something. Do you know what I mean? That like, because if it's meant to be read like a note, you're not writing a note like a letter. Like you're writing a note as you're running out the door, and you don't have time to write loads. So you want it to be very accurate and very to the point. So because you don't really have a lot of time to express yourself and show off your Spanish, the way you're going to get these well-made points marks is that you're going to have correct syntax, correct sentence structure, correct tenses, and correct agreement. So like the examiner will be in more of a position, because your answer is so much shorter, to really like fine comb through all of your words and make sure that everything is correct. In the diary entry, not so much, okay? So that's just to kind of give you some insight into the differences between them, because they share the same marking scheme, okay? So just one thing I'd like to kind of just point out to you guys is at the bottom of the first page there, I've said in any part of written production, the same mistake will not be penalised twice, aka the State Examinations Commission, they just want you to be consistently bad. Like if you make a mistake, just keep making it, okay? But like all jokes aside, that if you make one mistake in your diary entry and you make it 10 times, it's only going to be marked as one mistake. It's not going to be like 10 different mistakes, you know? And that's something that, again, I really try and kind of reassure students with throughout the year in grinds, that like, please don't panic if you keep making the same mistake over and over again, because it is only one mistake. I'd be more worried that if you're making like 5 different mistakes in 3 different ways or something, that we really kind of try and keep everyone nice and calm, make sure they're really familiar with the marking scheme for all parts of the exam. So hopefully that's of some kind of reassurance to you guys. Just before we finish up, just before we have a look at the sample answer and stuff, just for these notes to make sense, I don't know why I forgot to put page numbers on them. That's so annoying, so I apologise. But what I've done is I've broken them down into kind of key areas of concern for the diary entry. So things like your friends, your host family, how you're getting on in Spain, blah, blah, blah. but I've kind of, for the bigger ones, like for your friends there, so we started off with like the first chart is like the positive, so if you have made friends. The second chart then is a little bit more negative, so like if you haven't made friends yet, or if you have a problem with your friends, something like that. Host family, if you like the family. If you don't like the family, that you have options for all of them. So again, we've got your friends, your family, and then you've got like the host school, so el colegio anfitrión is the third theme. You've got food, there's loads of stuff in it. But what I want to finish up with, está en la página, sorry, I can't even give you a page number, but I think it's on the very last page. Yeah, okay, so I want to go through the two last pages. So the first one, I actually can't remember what year this is. I think it's from 2018, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. I just want you to have a look through this sample answer, okay? So this is a little bit difficult, it's a little bit complex, but just to kind of show you, this is a very long diary entry and it's still not really that long. And then we're going to have a look at the last one before we finish up, which is all about finding the mistakes, okay? So I'm going to read through this really quick and just translate it for you, just to kind of give you some insight into what this question says, okay? So, dear diary, es muy extraño, it's very strange to live away from home for the first time, por primera vez. Y la verdad es que me siento muy sola. The truth is that I feel very alone. El otro día, cuando me desperté, llamé a mi madre para contarle un sueño que tuve, y cuando me di cuenta de que yo ya no estaba en casa y que mi madre no estaba aquí, me eché a llorar. Pero bueno, poco a poco me estoy acostumbrando más y ya no extraño tanto a mi familia. So, dear diary, it's really strange living away from home for the first time, and the truth is that I feel very alone. If you're a boy, you would say solo there. The other day when I woke up, I called my mum to tell her about a dream that I had, and when I realised that I wasn't at home anymore and my mother was not here, I burst into tears. Okay, so this is what I mean about it being very dramatic, like burst into tears straight away. But anyway, little by little I'm getting used to Spain more and I don't miss my family as much. Desde acabo de llegar a este apartamento y me encanta. Lo que más me gusta son las vistas que tiene desde el balcón. Son increíbles. Desde mi balcón puedo ver las montañas que son muy bonitas y mucho más durante la puesta de sol. So, ever since I've arrived at this apartment, I've loved it. What I like the most are the views that it has from the balcony. They're incredible. From my balcony, I can see the mountains that are gorgeous and a lot more during kind of like sunrise or during sunlight. Además de este, hay una chica que se llama María y ella vive enfrente y nos hemos hecho amigas. Ella es muy simpática y he notado que desde que somos amigos mi español ha mejorado mucho, ya que siempre lo estamos hablando. Normalmente nos vemos por las tardes porque ella va a la universidad durante el día, pero ella ha dicho que este verano le gustaría venir a Irlanda conmigo. Tengo muchas ganas, será genial. So as well as that, there's a girl called Maria and she lives opposite me and we've made friends. She's really nice and I've noticed that ever since we've been friends, my Spanish has improved a lot since we're always speaking it. Normally, or usually, we see each other in the afternoons because she goes to university during the day, but she has told me that this summer she would like to come to Ireland with me. I'm really excited, it will be great. Espero que mi familia venga a visitarme pronto. Como ya he dicho, los echo mucho de menos y María también ha dicho que le gustaría conocer a mi familia, ya que yo ya he conocido la suya. Creo que les gustaría mucho Segovia. Bueno, ya veremos. So I hope that my family will come to visit me soon. As I've said, I really miss them a lot. And Maria also told me that she would like to meet my family since I've already got to meet hers. I think that they will really like Segovia. So we will see. Okay, so just to finish up, we're going to do something a little bit different. So there are 17 mistakes in this diary entry, right? So what I would actually get used to do, because we're not going to have time, is maybe pause the video for a couple of minutes and just look for these mistakes, and then I'm going to run through them really, really quickly, okay? So pause the video and come back. Okay, so the first mistake that I'm going to mark there is the date. Months of the year in Spanish take a small f. Don't lose stupid grammar marks for using capital letters, okay? The only thing in Spanish that takes a capital letter is the name of a person, name of a place. Next one then. Should be querido diario. Doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, dear diary is always going to be querido diario. So me encanta el curso que estoy haciendo en Córdoba, me lo pasé genial con los otros chicos de mi curso y las clases es muy interesantes. Aprendemos sobre la lengua española, la cultura e historia también. Okay, so I'm talking about the course, so it should just be me encanta. So I love the course that I'm doing. Córdoba me lo pasé genial means I had a great time with the other people on my course. I want to say, because I'm doing the course, I want to say I am having a great time. So I'm going to say me lo paso. Okay, I'm having a great time with the other people on my course, and the classes are very interesting. So that should be las clases son muy interesantes. Aprendemos sobre la lengua. Now, because I'm using the word Spanish as an adjective for the word la lengua, the Spanish language, that should be española. So we learn about the Spanish language. So aprendemos sobre la lengua española, la cultura e historia también. Now, he conocido. The verb conocer is nearly always followed by the preposition a. So, he conocido a gente. If that's something that you haven't seen before, I would maybe mark it for yourselves and just write down the word personal a and Google it in your own time. So, he conocido a gente muy simpática en este curso. Aquí hay mucha gente. So again, I don't need muchas, I just need mucha. Aquí hay mucha gente de por todo el mundo. Okay, so I'm either going to say there are people from all around the world or there are people all around the world. So I want to say there are people from all around the world. So I just want to say de todo el mundo. I don't need the por, I don't need the two prepositions. Es muy guay, it's really cool. Hay una chica. No. Hay una chica, not una chico. Okay, so hay una chica que se llama Ana y nos hemos hecho buenas amigas. Ella es de Portugal y es muy amistosa. Now, me has invitado a visitar, that's saying you have invited me to visit. I want to say she has invited me to visit. So I'm actually going to say me ha invitado a visitar a su familia cuando acabe el curso y le he dicho que sí. Tengo muchas ganas de ir. Now, la otra día. Día is masculino, so it should be el otro día. We were playing guest student class and it was really fun. I was playing against our teacher and I want to say I could not stop laughing. Okay, so I'm going to say y no podía, not no puedo, because that means I can't. And I don't think it was that funny that like I'm still laughing at it, do you know? So I'm going to say I wasn't able to stop laughing, so no podía parar de reír, no se le da bien el juego. La semana que viene esperamos ir al Museo del Cine Español. It's el cine, so I don't need the A at the end of española. Me gustó mucho el cine, así que, actually, sorry, I've marked one of these as, that should have been one mistake, so there's actually going to be 18 on my list, that's okay. So me gustó, I never say, I want to say me gusta. Me gusta mucho el cine, así que creo que, I think it will be incredible. Será, future tense of the verb ser. Okay, so there's actually 18 and there's 18 little boxes if you want to screenshot that now and fill in those 18 boxes underneath. Okay, so sorry, I know that was probably a little bit of a rush, but again, if you thought that that was something that's a little bit different, that's something I really like doing in grinds all the time, rather than always getting you guys to write something, is to try and get you guys to correct little answers like that, just to kind of show you how important it is to proofread your work. So I apologise if that was a very intense course, but I really wanted to kind of cover the two big areas of concern for the written paper with you guys. If other aspects of the exam are something that you're a little bit worried about, things like the oral and stuff, just to kind of give you a heads up that we actually are going to be doing 2 mock orals, one in each term for those of you that are going to be here for grinds next year. So I think we're doing them in November and February. So it is kind of in your benefit that if you are thinking of coming to grinds, I would generally recommend coming from the beginning. We have a lot of students inquire about after Christmas. I will have covered half of the course before Christmas, so you won't get the whole course after Christmas, if that makes any sense. And you kind of won't get the benefit of doing all the mock orals and stuff as well. So for those of you that maybe are considering coming to grinds, what we are going to be starting off with, we're going to be straight into the opinion piece topics and straight into the oral exam. I'll have like work booklets and everything for you to have all your notes and everything in, but generally, if you want to get if you want to cover as much of the course as possible with me, there isn't really much of a point in coming after Christmas, because you will only get half the course. Like, I want to start with, I suppose, hitting the ground running and just get us all sorted, especially considering everything we've gone through because of COVID and stuff and the amount of time that you guys would have missed out on last year. I want to make sure that we are in a prime place from September onwards, okay? So hopefully I will see a few of you guys there, and if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with the school and I will get back to you as soon as we can. And yeah, que tengáis un buen día y muchísimas gracias y adiós.